Pregame.com.
Super Bowl prop betting. It's become very big. I'm Marco D'Angelo. I'm joined by Bryan Leonard. We're going to talk about some strategies, how to attack these prop bets. And Bryan, I'm going to be honest with you. I moved here from Pittsburgh 4 years ago. Betting back in Pittsburgh, with a private guy and, doing until, offshore sports betting, props weren't a big thing. You might have had a handful, But when I started coming out here for some Super Bowls, and then, of course, once I moved out here, this is huge. There's the props. You go down to the Hilton. So I'm going to call it the Hilton forever, but it's now what, LVH?
LVH,
yeah. When they brought their props out, went and got their sheet. I know you were actually there for when they literally opened the numbers. Describe that atmosphere and what goes on down there.
Yeah, you could tell the guys who are interested in betting for a living as opposed to the guys who are interested in betting on what's on TV. It was packed regardless, but there was a bunch of guys standing up by the counter waiting for those lines to come on board, and then there was another group of us in back at the tables getting a good look at the videos. So once they put those lines up, we could charge the counter and get in line and pick out the games we wanted. Basically, the Hilton this year, it was very similar to the Gold Nugget, where they had, you could bet 2 games at a time at $2,000 each per prop. Then you had to go to the back of the line. There was roughly 25 people in line every time. And for the most part, it was the same guys going from the back of the line to the front of the line, back of the line, front of the line, all the time. And the sad part was they didn't have the sheets this year. And they did this for a reason, because everybody else copies their sheets. So they didn't want to put that out. So if you're going to take the time and write down every game, and they've got one of those rolling rolling boards, it is virtually impossible. So you're standing in line as the line's moving up, and you got your head this way, 1547 minus 15, 1547 minus 15, you go up a few minutes. Where the hell's that 1547? I can't find it on the board.
Yeah.
And it is a pain. It really is. And good thing they only let you bet 2 at a time, because you can never remember any more than that. But basically, you go up and you play your 2 dimes, dime, whatever you're playing, and they decide they're going to move the line or whatever. But you want to be first in line, because if there are mistakes, you want to take advantage of them. And, for example, we'll get into something in a minute, but there was a game out there that you could have bet minus 110. Now is minus 320. But you could have been first in line and gotten minus 110.
Wow. Well, generally speaking, looking at the props, do you have a basic strategy of things that you look at, or is this one of those things where your fundamental theories, and we always talk about value in that, and we use the phrase so many times with teams, we talk about there's marquee teams, and they're always overvalued. To me, in the props, I look at the props that involve the marquee players, because I think there's always going to be value there betting against them, because they are going to overprice those teams, because they know Joe Blow's going to look at Tom Brady, or it goes back to the theory that I always say, if you put 100 people in a room that know nothing about handicapping, and you give them a free bet on the Super Bowl or whatever game it is, say you can bet the over or under, blindly, more people are going to bet the over, because in their mind, they want to root for scoring. They're never out of the game, because you can always score. The game's never done. So you're always still alive. And they think, when you bet the under, once it goes over, you're dead. Well, in theory, it's the opposite. When you bet an under, you're winning your bet the entire game until you reach the point of losing it, where when you're betting an over, you're never winning your bet until it finally gets to that point. So I like to look at the marquee players and look at propositions that are looking for them, I guess you would say, to fail.
Yeah, what you want to do first, well, this is for people who gamble for a living, and you're in Vegas. If you're not in Vegas, this is the one time of year where it's definitely against you to not be in Vegas, because there's so many places out there, and they're cleaning it up. And like last year, the Hilton got crushed. They opened up early, and they weren't even close. And this year, and I actually tweeted it out, I went in there for the NFC AFC Championship games, and I went in there on a Thursday. I said, when are you going to put out the props? And he says, well, probably Saturday, but more than likely Sunday morning. And I said, you do realize the games are Sunday morning. That tells me how much they got killed last year. But you go into it, and the first thing you want to do is take a look at which are mispriced. For example, this year, this game is being played in a dome. A lot of the things I bet earlier were kicking props. I bet a prop, will Tynes' first kick be a touchback? And I got plus 175 in a dome in which 78% of the kicks were touchbacks this year.
Yeah.
So that's just blindly play it. Will the first kickoff be a touchback? Minus 110. As soon as I bet it, went up to 130, 120. Last time I went in, it was 130. I mean, it's just getting advantage of it and just knowing that they took the averages of the entire season. And these are teams playing in New York, in the wind, and New England in bad weather. And so they didn't factor in the situation. So you have to look and say, okay, these teams, when they did play in a dome, how did these teams do? And in this actual building, how have these situations come up? And then you know what really is what you're looking for. And you talked about playing players. You go into it and you say, okay, am I looking to play an over? Well, if you're looking to play an over, you want to get in early. If you're looking to play an under, just wait. For the most part, you just want to wait, especially if it's a key player. I mean, Cruz, we knew Cruz was going to be bet up as soon as it came out. So you hit the Cruz over, I think it was 80.5 passing yards was the original, and then it's up to like 85 now. So then you decide at that point if you want to buy back the under.
Absolutely. And again, another thing that you touched on, you said if you like the over. You can't forget that you got to do your basic handicapping for the game. What you see in your handicapping, how the game's going to play out. Is this going to be a high-scoring game? Is it going to be a defensive game? And formulate, what they're going to do. And I found a lot of times, again, go to those guys, the obscure guys, because let's face it, this is the big game. There's 2 weeks to prepare. Coaches are going to have a couple wrinkles in their playbook where, and when you say a wrinkle, generally to me, it's going to be something you haven't seen yet. We know the big name players, the Cruzes, the tight end for New England, Gronkowski. Those guys, everybody knows those names. They're going to do something with somebody that you're not going to expect that's going to be a surprise. And you can steal some player props on these lesser guys that, are going to, one play. They can make one play and hit their player prop. So those are the kind of things that I look at. Again, I'll be the first to admit I'm not as versed in the props as you guys because this is something new to me in the last 4 years of doing it, hardcore rather than only having a private book, that only gives you a handful.
Yeah, I agree. There's different ways to look about it. I mean, if you like the Giants in the game and you didn't get the good number of 3.5 when it came out, and you don't want to lay more. Basically, it's minus 120 now, a plus 3. Mm-hmm. There's different ways to get around it. I talked earlier about the minus 110, and it wasn't at the Hilton, by the way. It's just a guy is in our Tuesday meeting. Mm-hmm. We talked about who's going to get the ball first, who's going to kick off first. And it's a situation where one team and the Patriots kick off every time because Belichick wants the ball second half. The Giants have taken the ball every time except for the last 2 games. But they were playing teams that were better defensively than they were offensively. New England's not going to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. So he actually got who will get the ball first, the Giants at minus 110, and there are places out there right now that's minus 320 because he was ahead of the curve. Now, it could easily happen that the Giants want to throw something up against New England and say, well, I know New England wants the ball first in the second half. I don't want this to play into their strategy, so we will kick off first if we win it. And then it screws everybody up. And that's what happened last year in the Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh was doing the same thing.
It was one of the props I lost last year.
And unfortunately, I had a lot of money based on that. Mm-hmm. In this last week, San Francisco, it was the same thing. And I did that line maker show. And part of my thought process was the Giants on the money line and Giants plus the 1.5, 2 points, whatever, it wasn't worth it. But I could get the Giants to score first, and I could get the Giants plus a half in the first quarter. And it worked out well until the Giants decided we're going to kick the ball instead because we don't trust your offense. Yeah. So it didn't work out that way, but in the long run, most of those will come through for you.
It goes back to doing homework. I mean, it's all about it. The more you're never going to have too much knowledge in this business, and That's something in Twitter, we talk about it at different times. How much more information do you get quicker now with Twitter, following beat writers, following, guys that, blogs for, a certain team? I mean, we see stuff before it hits ESPN or it hits injury reports. It's a great advantage. And, it's a situation that, if you're not using everything that's out there, I mean, you think back, me and you's old school. I mean, I used to do, and I've talked about it in different videos, before the internet and the computers and everything, I used to do in baseball season, I used to log manually every pitcher's, his pitching line by hand, and I think back to all those boxes of cards that I had, like index cards on them and had it printed out, and I'd just fill them in so that I could see guys' patterns coming in and out, and, away day and now, it's 3 seconds on a computer.
That's true, and it's with the Twitter thing you mentioned, especially in the NBA this year, playing so many back-to-backs with the injury situations. I mean, how many times there'll be a 10-game card and only 4 of them have overnight lines because of the injury situation. So it's very vital, and you just need to make sure that when you get that information, it's from somebody you trust. And because I mean, with so many the Dwayne Wade situations, 1 minute he's going to play tonight, and you see the line moving, and then you come back, same guy, 2 minutes later, okay, he's not going to play. So you have to take a look at it, and you have to say, okay, this is somebody who's been right in the past and somebody you can trust. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have more videos this week on the Super Bowl. You're going to get overdosed on Super Bowl before the week's over. So we're taping on Monday with this one. We're going to be back. We'll be taping videos again Wednesday and Thursday this week. So we'll have a lot of action. Also, check out, it'll be recorded tomorrow morning. Bryan Leonard's on it. I'll be on it. Vegas Runner will be on it. Gil Alexander. It is the Betting Dork Mega Pod for the NFL Super Bowl. We'll be talking everything and anything Super Bowl, so be sure to check out Gil Alexander's Betting Dork podcast. It'll be posted sometime early afternoon tomorrow. We're recording it in the morning, so check that out. And be sure to check out all the videos this week at pregame.tv. He's Bryan Leonard. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back later in the week.